welcome our good friend of the college, Mr. Rishi Malhotra. He's academic and community relations manager at IMA. This was an event that was initiated by him and helped by the IMA student chapter. So thank you, everyone. Rishi, the floor or the bandwidth is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Ihab. Thank you, Mustafa, as well. Really appreciate the support of the student chapter. Before I begin, I just want to make sure that all obviously the students, everybody at KFUPM, your families and friends are all obviously health and safety during this very challenging and difficult time. We are in a good place, and inshallah, we will be out of this very, very soon. So I will take this forward. It'll take me around 45 minutes, and if you have any questions at the end, I'll be happy to answer them for you. Okay, so let me move forward. Okay, see why it's not letting me do that. Okay.
Rishi, are you there? Yeah, okay.
Yes, I'm here, yes.
Okay.
I'm here, it's just not letting me move the presentation forward. It's technology, so sometimes it does stop working. Okay. Yeah, for some reason I can't move forward. I'm sorry about this.
No, it's fine. Rishi, I'm just going to make you the host. I think we can take care of the, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it should be okay there.
Okay. Still not letting me move forward. Okay, I cannot. So I don't know why it's not letting me move forward. Try this remote control instead. No, it's still not letting me move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry about this. We will be soon. We'll be soon on our way with the presentation.
Rishi, I'm just going to reshare that with you so that you can restart.
Okay.
Maybe just stop the full screen mode and just restart the PowerPoint.
Okay. So shall I stop sharing? You're going to stop sharing with me first?
So basically what you can do is just go off the full screen mode and just like you've opened up the PowerPoint.
Yeah, so let me just stop sharing first.
Cool.
And then we'll just go to, okay, full screen. Okay, so that's at that stage now. Okay.
Now you can start that again.
Okay, so let me just share my screen. Sorry about the technical glitch. We'll be on our way now. So It's great to obviously present to KFUPM students. I've known EHAB for a number of years. I've come to the university a couple of times. Most recently, just a few weeks ago, I think at the end of February, which is always great. Just to look at the agenda, you know, I'm talking off experience, and I'm talking off the previous kind of jobs and roles that I played, kind of in the UK and here as well. So I wanted to, when I'm talking about CV, structure, having more effective resume, type of mistakes that candidates can kind of make, which I've done in the past as well. So I've often made mistakes on my CV. The kind of the do's and the don'ts. So there is kind of some information there where you should kind of proceed and you shouldn't really proceed with certain stuff. I would also give you some advice for kind of fresh graduates if you're looking to graduate kind of this year, your layout. And also I would want to talk a little bit about the types of questions at interview, because, you know, when you get that all important call or email, you know, there is an opportunity there for you to be prepared as well. And I will give you some hints and tips on that. So we'll move forward. So when you talk about your CV, you know, when you actually just take it as an example. So you might be on social media, you might be looking at something and you like something, and you will kind of go into that into further detail. So your CV is literally like that. It's there to catch the attention of the recruiter. Don't forget, when you're applying for a role, the recruiter has a problem and you could be that potential solution. So it's imperative and it's exceptionally important that you set your CV up in a way where it gets noticed. Okay. So these are the things that you should obviously keep in mind. And you know, something that I would also like to share with you before we carry on with the presentation. Being students, there are various projects, various work, various initiatives that you're involved in on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. It's always actually very, very good to write a little bit about this information just on a separate piece of a Word document, A4 piece of paper, so you don't forget. Because when you come to actually put your CV together, there's probably lots of great work that you may forget about. So it's a good thing to write a few bullet points. You don't have to write lots and lots of information, just to give you information where you can actually put a comprehensive CV together. Okay, so again, your CV structure should be, you should have your personal details, it should be totally up to date. A paragraph, you know, this I cannot obviously say, and how important this is. The paragraph or your personal statement is one of the most important parts. Don't forget, you'll be a fresh graduate, you would have limited experience. Obviously, don't, you know, if you are involved in other kind of extracurricular activities where, I don't know, you might be a musician, a sports player, you might be involved in teams. Don't forget, these can all be these are all transferable skills, and we will talk about that later on. So you look at obviously your education, your experience. You want to make sure that you obviously add that, and obviously add the skills that you can bring to the organization in this role. Include any voluntary work, which I will talk about, and also look at your hobbies and interests, and try and obviously stay away from, you know, I like going to the movies, because these are very, very popular and everybody likes going to the movies as well. So try and obviously think of other things that you're involved in, whether it's you know, you might be a musician, you might be you know, a great sports player. We will talk a little bit about that when we come through the presentation. Okay. So when we talk about an effective resume, you know, when you talk about a recruiter, they will not go through your CV in fine detail where they'll spend several minutes on there. You know, recruiters often get quite a lot of applications for a particular role. So they only have a set amount of time. And it's usually, the guidelines say, you know, I'm saying it's around 20 to 40 seconds. It could be slightly less than that as well. And all they will do is they will look at your CV and literally look at your statement, look at your experience, and see if you obviously fit for that particular role. So it's imperative that you make it count. And that particular paragraph that I'm talking about, we will discuss it in more detail later on. Like I said, you could be the possible problem for that organization. They're hiring for a particular role because they need somebody that can obviously meet the business needs. So you could possibly be that need. So again, we will look into that in greater detail. So when you talk about your CV, it's going to have to be impeccable, and we will talk about the different do's and don'ts. And I did make sure, and I did say, like, you know, don't put hobbies in there, like, you know, watching music or just listening to music. We need to be thinking outside the box, and we need to be writing in there something that you have interest in, whether, you know, I don't know, like I said about music, you know, you like obviously preparing music, you like singing, you like to be playing a musical instrument. It can be anything like that. But do have a think about that, because nowadays companies want more. If you look at these big universities, they every kind of individual that they're looking at as a student, academically, they are exceptionally strong. So they often look for extracurricular activities. What else can they bring to the university? So again, if you're involved in things like that, absolutely fantastic. So I want to focus on some of the things regarding CV. Now, I've done this before some years ago, and the first point is says it's not tailored to the job. So there was sometimes when I was back in the UK, this was probably in the early 90s, or sorry, early 2000, where I would often apply for a role but send out the same resume. But then when obviously I've had some coaching and guidance, my mentor has said to me, listen, if you're sending out the same resume, that means you're sending you think that the job is the same as the previous one. So again, it's really, really important that you actually tailor your experience, your academic towards the job. Okay. You know, nowadays, when you look at the two key components when it comes to soft skills, they want fresh graduates to be a good communicator, and they want fresh graduates to be a good team player. These are the two that come up quite often. Now, this does not mean that there are not others. You know, if you have got others where you're exceptional in, that's fantastic. Okay. So one of the things is not tailored to the job. And again, we will talk about that. You know, the length of the CV has to be, and you look at the global standard. Now, if you look at being a fresh grad, you will have no more than a one-page CV. And when you start obviously getting your professional experience together, again, it's usually, again, the standard is a two-page CV. And we will talk about how you can kind of fit your work history into a two-pager. You know, I've seen CVs with pages and pages, and unfortunately, you know, recruiters are just not going to have time to actually go through page and page and page. You know, some CVs have got poor formats. You know, they're not easy to read. And I mentioned this before, that the HR person, you need to make it as easy as possible for the HR person to looking at your CV. So a good thing always to do once you have a comprehensive CV is to give it to your family and friends. Say, hey, can you give me some feedback on this? How do you read this? You know, how does it look to you? Another big thing that the types of things that happen is spelling and grammar. You know, that's pretty much self-explanatory. Spelling grammar is something that you need to be aware of, for sure. You know, I'm not, you know, sometimes you look at a word, you think, okay, it's spelled correctly, but it's always good to check. You know, contact information or email addresses may not be up to date. Again, we said, and we talked about personal statements. This is where is going to be your hook for the actual recruiter. And this is where they will look at you and think, okay, yeah, this person has got communication, he's got teamwork, he's got other things, he's got kind of extracurricular, he's a singer, he's a basketball player, he's a football player. So all these kind of count. Again, when it comes to having a photo on the CV, I know in the region, CVs are sent with photos, so I would kind of carry on with that. I would, you know, if you feel comfortable with sending photos, for sure, carry on doing that once you're going for a role. Just to give you an example, where I'm obviously from the UK, we don't put any photographs on CVs there. But again, if it's necessary for the region, you can do so. So you can carry that forward. So we're going to focus on a few kind of do's and don'ts. So we talked about your CV not being kind of tailored for the role. So it says construct your CV with your prospective employer in mind. So when you actually look at a job description, a lot of the job description you can incorporate in your CV. And I'm not saying you incorporate all the job description in your CV. I'm talking about some of these kind of words that they use. Okay, so again, team player might be coming up, communicator might be coming up, you know, worked in projects might be coming up at this early stage. So this is something that you can be mindful of. You know, what I don't want you to do from this session is you think, okay, you get the job description and you kind of put most of the job description in your CV. No, I'm telling you to incorporate words, because the words in your CV will then come up that are in the job description. Okay, so this is something that you can add. It's always good to do short experiences, and what that should do, once you actually go through the corporate ladder, there shouldn't be any gaps in your CV for sure, because what will happen is if you have gaps, recruiters will ask you regarding the gaps. You know, where were you from this month to this month to this year? If you have a good reason for it, there's no problem. You know, maybe you've taken a career break, or you've gone to do an MBA and then you're coming back to your you know, your professional kind of work. So again, long as you have an answer for this, it's absolutely fine. Okay. We talked about tailoring your CV to the job, and it's imperative that you look at the job description first. You know, you don't start doing the CV. You'll have a skeleton of your CV. However, you will then look at the job description. So, okay, what can I incorporate from the job description into my CV to make this more kind of catching towards this particular job? And again, what you would need to do is you would need to file your CV accordingly to say, okay, I went to EY with this CV. Okay, I've got KPMG on this side. So again, it's good for you to manage that as well, because again, if another role came up with the same organization, you need to be mindful of that. If you send your CV again, they will look through their database to understand if you've actually applied for any roles before. So you need to be managing what you're sending to them. Okay. When you talk about your experience, you can talk about your experience, and then what you can do, you can make sure that you can add around 5 to 7 bullet points. You know, what I've seen a lot is when people talk about their experience, they will put their experience into a paragraph. Yeah, it's great. However, for the recruiter, they have to look at that in detail. So you keep it with short bullet points, 5 to 7 bullet points. It makes it very, very easy for the recruiter. They can analyze and understand what your experience is, and they can make a decision. Okay. Good to put in your languages that you speak. You speak Arabic, you speak English, you maybe speak French, you speak other languages. It's great to put that in there. Always good to use your experience in a positive light. You know, use it in a positive way. Use it in power words. You know, that you're committed, you're motivated. You know, I'm a great team player. So these are all kind of hints. You can think, okay, this person could be the one. Always good to put your name and email address on the footer of each page. So it's okay when you have a 1-pager, but again, if you've got a 2-pager, and sometimes if the recruiter is actually printing your CV off, they will have a stack of information, CVs. If they obviously drop that, they may lose out the page. So again, something to keep in mind when you do go to a 2-pager. Have your name on the footer. It's always good. Again, we talked about the positive language on the CV, and a lot of this positive language you can actually gain from the job description. So I cannot emphasize enough that your job description is basically one of the keys to writing a good structured CV. Because don't forget, your experience will stay the same. You may put the odd word and change some of the bullet points, but in that paragraph, in that personal statement, this is where you would need to make it count. If you have, and I've seen this before, your email, some emails are not professional. It's good to change it to a professional email address for sure. So something to keep in mind. Okay. So when we talk about the don'ts on a CV, and again, I've seen this myself, is you should never lie on your CV. You will always get challenged by the recruiter to understand your experience, your marks, etc. So it's just a no not to lie. And also, don't use any personal pronouns like I, me, and my, because this is talking about you. If you're saying you're a great team player and you're using them type of words, that doesn't really show it. So again, something that you need to be mindful of when you're using these little statements. It means that you're more of a, you work on your own. However, in your personal statement, you're saying you're a great team player. So these are just little bits that you need to be mindful of. Okay. Don't leave out any locations, because again, to a recruiter, you know, you might work in KSA, you might obviously later on move to a different country. Make sure you keep it simple and straightforward for the recruiter, so they know that during this time and this time, you're based in Europe somewhere. Again, these are expressions that you kind of, that I've seen, duties included, responsibilities included. You know, this is all kind of CV language, and you don't need to use that. Again, your personal statement, you're not going to say in your personal statement, duties included, because that is kind of CV jargon. You don't need to do that at all. And avoid, obviously, any kind of technical jargon. You know, if you're a technical person, the other person that is looking at your CV may not understand what X73589 is. So we can understand it because we know what that means, but sometimes you can see this on CV. And again, the main thing is to make it as easy as possible, so the recruiter can make a very, very quick decision. Again, you don't need to provide school names. You know, the organization wants to look at your university, wants to look at your marks, and wants to look at you. They won't be really much interested in the school that you've obviously come from. So you can talk about your university and yourself. Other advice. So when we talk about as a fresh graduate now, probably Ehab knows I'm from the Institute of Management Accountants, and we specialize, and we are the basically holder for the CMA, which is the Certified Management Accountant. So it's imperative, if you're not thinking about a professional certification, you do think about a professional certification, because if you look at some years ago, it used to be a plus. Now it's a must. So whether you want to be an auditor, you want to go down the CPA route, you want to do a CMA, you might want to be an ACCA, look at this in detail, because what you're trying to do there as students, you are trying to differentiate yourself. You know, for example, we have 10 million students in the region that graduate from university. We look at that and then we break it down further. Okay, we have 10 million. How many of them are going to take a undergrad and MBA? It's going to get less than 10 million. Then we look at MBA, undergrad, and professional certification. Again, it gets less. So it's something that you need to be mindful of. We as the Institute of Management Accountants, the CMA, just to give you 2 minutes of a kind of a brief overview, it's a 2-part paper, and it specializes in 12 core competencies. Okay. So something that you can obviously, you do whilst you're a student. And the good thing about it is the 12 core competencies are something that you could well be doing at the moment. Risk management, we have corporate finance on there. We have investment decisions on there. We have obviously technology on there, which focuses on data analytics, business intelligence, things like that. So it's something as a student, you need to be looking at a professional certification, and that's to make you stand out, because I'm sure you want to give yourself the best opportunity. Don't get me wrong, KFUPM is a wonderful university. You have a great ecosystem there, but again, you also need to be thinking about your future. And as you know, technology is changing the face of the world. You know, if we look at 10 years, 12 years ago, the biggest companies were oil companies. But now it's all technology, isn't it? So they're saying that data is more valuable than anything. So if company have data and you know how to manage the data, then for sure you're putting yourself in a good spotlight. So I wanted to obviously give you a brief update on the role of the professional certification, and you know, maybe later on, you know, in the next few months we can do something, a kind of a session on that. And again, it's always good to set your strengths and weaknesses early on. You know, just like myself, I have my strengths and I have my weaknesses. It's good for you to analyze that for sure, because what you can do with your strengths is you can keep on getting stronger. Any weaknesses you've got, you can start enhancing them at an early age. And again, that is important. You know, 9 times out of 10, a recruiter will ask you, come on, can you share me your strengths and what weaknesses you have? And, you know, you get more credibility if you're absolutely open and honest. because no matter what happens, we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. So again, something that you need to kind of keep in mind. I did mention about making an impact. You know, the biggest thing is making the impact, the personal statement, your information, your great experience, your great skills. So this is exceptionally important. So these particular little kind of things that I've obviously gone through, if we look at them as little things, we can actually put a good comprehensive CV together for sure. Again, this is how your structure would be. Your personal statement would be at the top. Like I said, you would have your information, your name, your address, your contact number, your email. You would have your professional experience in the middle, and then you would talk about your education. Again, I would like to share something with you. So I delivered this. I think it might have been similar presentation in Kuwait around 8 months ago, and a young gentleman said, "Well, you know, I don't actually have any other things that I'm involved in." So I said, "Okay, so you don't play sports, you don't do anything like that?" He said, "No, I play basketball." So I said, "Okay, great. Okay, tell me a little bit about it." So he says, "Okay, yeah, you have 5 players, this and that." I said, "Okay, fantastic." So I said, "How are you on the team? Do you play on your own?" And he said, "Well, no, I play as a team." I said, "Okay." I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, so what happens if, excuse me, if your team is not performing? What do you do?" Well, we would have a break and we'd have a discussion. We would talk about how we've done, what do we need to do to improve. I said, "Okay, fantastic." So what you've just explained to me is you're involved in a basketball team, and you said to me that if somebody's not playing well, you would have a break and you would talk and have a discussion about it. That can actually replicate into the corporate world. You're not going to always be performing 100%. And if your colleagues and the people that you're working with, and you're especially that you can see that and have that discussion, you're already one step ahead. So when you actually break it down and you talk about transferable skills, playing in any type of team is transferable skills. Because when you're playing as a team, you need to be a good communicator, you need to have great empathy, you need to be communicating in the right way to motivate people. So again, this is something that you need to be mindful of. Doesn't matter if you're a great sports person, you still got them transferable skills. So always keep them in the back of your mind to say, yes, I know exactly what I can say and what I need to do. So this is something that I wanted to share with you, because you know, the gentleman said, "Well, I don't have any transferable skills. What do I put in there?" And I said, "Well, this is what you need to put in there." And it was through the questioning that we found out that this young gentleman liked to play basketball. So again, something to always think about. You're there to get the transferable skills, whether you're doing projects in KFUPM, you're doing projects. Of course, you have to do it it's usually in a team if you're doing project work, for sure. So again, these are all transferable skills. Again, when you're putting a project together, there will be certain things where you don't agree with students, your colleagues. And again, you're not going to shout, you're going to have a discussion. You're going to sit down and say, "Okay, let's discuss this, let's work it out." It's the same in the corporate world. So always, 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 always think about this. Okay, we're going to come on to a few slides regarding the types of questions that you could be asked at interview. And you know, there is always opportunities to research the company and give you and anticipate the types of questions. Okay, so 9 times out of 10, when you sit down, they will say, "Tell me about our organization." And I'm not saying that you need to understand their finances and really break it down. However, you to give them some information to make them aware that you've done some research. If you sit there and you're hesitating, well, yeah, I know you're established. You cannot hesitate. You need to be very, very quick. Yeah, you have offices around the world. I believe this office was set up in 2003. It started off small, and according to your website, you've now grown into 100 employee workforce. So again, if you're looking at this type of information, if you say that to me, I know full well the person that I'm looking at has done their research. So it gives me more confidence to say this person wants to join our organization. He's not only looked at his response to say, "Come for an interview," he's actually caring about who he's going to come and speak to maybe, and also done some research. So it's really, really important to get that research done and take your time on it. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not telling you to look at the financial statements of the company, but make sure you do your research. Good to see the countries that they're in, for sure. Obviously, if you can obviously talk a little bit about what they do, absolutely fantastic. In fact, the more that you can say to them, the better. It just shows that you've taken the time and the effort for this particular interview, and you want to make sure that you give and you have the best opportunity to get the role. Okay, so that's talking about the research of the company, sorry. So review the job description. And I know we talked about the job description in the past. Now, 9 times out of 10, the job description and the questions that are going to be asked are from the job description. So again, you can anticipate the types of questions that you're going to get. Okay, it might say that you have to work in a small team. It might say that you have to work outside of hours. It might have to say you have to be a communicator. You're reporting to several stakeholders in a different country. So again, they would say, well, how do you feel? How comfortable would you feel? So you can anticipate the types of questions. You have the standard questions. For sure, research would come up immediately. So that's something that you can anticipate. You know, strengths and weaknesses will come up, and for sure, any questions are going to be related. 2 to 3 questions at least are going to come from the job description. So again, it's something that you can look from the job description, and you can anticipate to say, okay, if I get asked this question, I'm going to say this. And it's always good to anticipate at least 6, 7, 8 questions. Why that is, you've got more of a probability and chance of obviously having the information when they ask you. If you're just looking at 2 or 3 questions, the probability of them asking them questions will be less if you have 8 in your already stored in your mind. Okay. And again, this example that I shared with you before, it says use examples from outside. For sure, if you're involved in any associations, you have an accounting club, we have obviously an IMA student chapter there. This is all transferable skills that you can talk about, because if you say on your CV, I'm an accounting club, I'm part of the IMA student chapter, 100% the recruiter will ask you, can you tell me a little bit about this? What is this? You know, what do you do? Well, this is what we do. We organize events, we have members, we have soft skills, technical skills, we organize with big recruiting companies. So it just shows you that you're having that kind of discussions at an early age at a senior level. So again, something that you can be that you need to be mindful of. And I know at KFUPM, this is something that you will always be thinking of, because KFUPM is a fantastic university. I know that because I've been there and I've done my research as well about KFUPM. So I know that. Again, when we talk about possible questions, you always are they're always going to ask you, especially when you start climbing up the corporate ladder, they're going to ask you to provide a summary of your work. They're going to ask you to provide a summary of your work. And again, you can do that in such a positive way. You know, you even when you're sat at the interview table, your posture needs to be upright. You shouldn't be leaning forward, because that could show that you could be a defensive person. You should be just sitting there with your posture, and usually with your hands on your lap, and you would talk calmly. So even posture is important in an interview as well. That shows a lot about the individual. Always arrive early. Don't arrive on time, because by the time you get to the meeting room, you could be late. So always arrive early. It's always good. It's always, when somebody mentions, oh, you're early, that's great. I'm early. You can calm down. There's nothing to be stressed about. You can sit there. You can read the magazine, and have a glass of water. And the thing for me when I was climbing up the corporate ladder, a gentleman, I always forget. I can't forget his name. His name was Mike McCarthy, and he says, Rishi, whenever I go for an interview, I get there around 15 to about. He said sometimes half an hour. He said the magazines on the desk can also give you a lot of information. So again, if you get there, you've got some magazines about the company, you've done your research, you've actually got time to do some more research as well. So again, you can keep these little hints and tips in mind. We talked about professional certification. it's really, really important for sure that you need to enhance yourself. If you want to go down the auditing route, you want to go down ACCA, CIMA, CMA. These are all great certifications, and IMA values all certifications. We never say that you need to go for the CMA. No, the choices are there. You go with what you have in mind for the passion. You know, the CMA is more of a, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, you have a family-run business, you need to have a CMA in there. Why? Because you need to understand what all departments are doing, what HR doing, what procurement doing, what accounts are doing. You know, so it's good. Obviously, if you're doing an audit route, you're going to be obviously auditing usually company books. So it's not more kind of diverse. Again, you might have a passion for auditing, but the CMA is a great certification. So again, and what you need to think about when you're sitting down with a professional certification, your discussion with the recruiter is at a totally different level. Being a non-certified holder, whether you're CMA, CPA, ACCA, you're at a different level. So you're going to be at a different level. Your knowledge is at a different level. You're speaking totally at a different level. And the beauty about it is the possibility of you getting promotion within the organization would be far greater than a non-certified holder for sure. Because the level where you're at is, you're totally at a different level. So being certified is definitely going to put you in a different spotlight. And also always remember your technical skills are very important. Your soft skills, your interpersonal skills are also very important, exceptionally important, because these are the type of skills that get you through interviews and get you noticed. And again, we talked about the strengths and weaknesses. Never shy away from your weaknesses. It just shows that you're an individual, that you're a self-reflective individual, you're an honest individual. You can say, look, I've got strengths, I've currently got a couple of weaknesses, but I'm working at it. I'm currently doing a course at the moment to enhance my weaknesses. And this shows that you are knowledgeable. It shows that you're motivated. It shows that you're at a level where you actually are self-reflecting all the time. You know, people that say, well, I don't have any weaknesses, well, they can sometimes be looked in a negative way. So it's always good to be open and understand how are you kind of bridging the gap between your strengths and your weaknesses. Again, usually they will always describe you in a situation where have you met with any difficult person, or have you had any lapse in communication? How did you handle it? These type of questions would all come up. Because again, if you're saying that you're great as a team player, you're great as a communicator, you've handled multiple projects, you want to make sure that whatever you're putting in your kind of paragraph or on your CV, you want to make sure that you can live up to that. If you're saying you're a great communicator, however, when you sit down, you're showing a lot of nerves and you cannot look at the recruiter, then it may not be the fact that you're a great communicator. Because a great communicator would look straight at the recruiter and they would actually speak in a very polite, professional, articulated way. They wouldn't be shy. They wouldn't be going red at all. So again, make sure when you do add information, if you're asked regarding that situation, you can actually answer this in a very professional way, where the recruiter knows, yeah, this person is very good when it comes to their soft skills and interpersonal engaging skills as well. So I know we've gone through quite a lot there. That's the end of my presentation. It was kind of short. It was sweet. I just want to open it up to the students that are there. If you have any questions at this time. I think I'll have to unmute.
Okay, there we go. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Rishi. Very informative. I love the points, especially for students who don't have a lot of experience to put on the CV. Very good points on how to take their strengths and turn that into points to add to their CV. So thank you so much for that. So
You're
let's
welcome.
let's do some questions and answers. And if you open the chat box, anyone who has a question, if you could just write it down in the chat box, and that way we could have it answered. So we have a question.
Okay.
Can you see them, Rishi, or?
I can't see them. Let me just say where the chat
next to the share screen, you're going to see a chat icon at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, I'm looking at the top. Maybe.
Okay, I could read the first question.
Yeah, please go ahead, Iyab. Yeah.
So the first question that came in, it says, when describing previous jobs, should I describe the responsibilities or what?
It's a great question. Now, what happens with a lot of people? They will go into communication of like a two or three sentences, or even a sentence. It's always good to keep it short and concise. And to give you an example, I obviously saved the organization. Let's just talk about $500,000. You don't need to go into detail, because the recruiter will look at that and they will certainly ask you that, because any organization wants to save money. So keep it short and concise. Bullet points, 5 to 7 bullet points is more than enough.
Great. So we have another question from Hassan. We have, what do you think I should write in the email I am writing to apply for a job?
You know, this is a great question. You know, when I've been in the region, I've often got CVs which are just a blank email. It doesn't say anything. It just has an attachment. So, you know, you can write obviously, you know, dear sir, madam, I'm applying for this particular role of X, Y, and Z, and you need to structure a nice email together. It doesn't have to be totally long. Again, you can talk about and give them a snapshot of your CV. So you can actually put in your information that is corresponding to your jobs. To say, well, I've worked at KPMG as an auditor. I've been a certified management accounting for several years. These are some of the projects. So before they actually get to your CV, they want to click the email, because they've seen a great email with some great strengths in there and some great experience. So always good to give a summary of your CV in the email for sure. Great question that was.
Thank you. Another question is it good to add logos of the organizations like the IMA or KFUPM in a CV?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Good to add logos, maybe not logos, but maybe a hyperlink to the organization. So sometimes, you know, adding a logo they may not know. But again, if we're making it easy for the recruiter, we put a link in there, and we actually say to them, please click here for the organization that I've worked at. Again, it's making it easy for them, for the recruiter. So they can see, okay, they can click, I've not really heard of this organization. Let me click on this and let me find out more information. So that would be my advice.
Another question I'll rephrase. Is it good to have colors in the CV, or should we just go with just a black and white?
It's funny you should say this, because I received a CV and it did have a lot of colors in there. This was about 4 days ago. I'm kind of old school when it comes to CVs. When it comes to colors, the person is more attracted to colors. And what I want to know, I want to employ that person for their ability and their experience. You know, as a personal thing for myself, I don't like colors, but I'm just talking about myself. You can keep it black and white with a little bit of color, but with the CV that I saw about 4 days ago, it was like a rainbow. So I actually said that I wouldn't send something like this. So it just depends. I would definitely limit the colors. And you know, from my side, it's just to keep it. You want to keep the focus on your experience and your CV. That's the best way to put it. We don't want to be focusing on the colors.
Good, great. A bunch of great questions coming in. So Ali is asking, is it okay to state the name of the company in the personal statement? So for example, saying I'm a highly motivated engineer looking for a job in this specific company?
Why not? Absolutely. It shows that you're motivated, you're engaged. For sure, you can put that in there. Absolutely.
Okay, another tricky one. If I'm employed and I wanted to change my job, and I had an interview and they asked me why I want to change my job, or why I'm leaving this other company, what's the way to answer this?
I was hoping nobody would obviously ask me this.
Mm.
You know, it's a tricky one because 9 times out of 10, you know, people will often say, "Look, I'm looking for a new challenge," you know, and what happens with that is, again, it depends. Recruiters may look at it and say, "Well, if we don't find this individual in challenging stuff, he may leave us as well." So it's kind of a tricky one.
Mm.
Um, I have I've never actually talked about, and this comes up a lot. You know, when you talk about if you've had any conflict with your manager, because the way I see it with my experience and what I know, you don't leave an organization, you leave your boss.
Mm. Mm.
That's the way I see it. So the way I would position it is to say, well, you know, I've been at the organization for, you know, X amount of years. And there's no harm in saying that I'm looking for a new challenge. We are a very, very small team. And, you know, the person in that role that is the next step for me has been there for many, many years.
Mm.
I don't think there's any harm in being honest, for sure. But definitely stay away from the conflict side. You know, never kind of say that you're leaving your manager behind,
Okay.
because then they might ask you further questions, because 9 times out of 10 you never leave an organization, you leave your manager.
Great. Thanks, Rishi. As a fresh graduate, do I really have the flexibility to adopt my CV based on the job I'm applying for?
Yes, you do. Now, what you have to have in mind is you cannot just be looking at you can't just be looking at your education. You need to be getting involved in different. If you're part of the chapter, you're part of an accounting club, you're part of I don't know, a sports, something in sports. There are things that you need to get involved in. Okay. And absolutely, you know, there's so much that you can obviously add, you know, even when you talk about exams, you know, being prepared for exams, how do you prepare exams? You can talk about this, and you know, when you talk about exam, you know, if somebody said to you, well, how do you prepare? Well, this is how I prepare. I make sure that I'm 100% prepared. For several weeks, I do at least 4 hours. It was funny because I just wanted to share one example. There was a guy that was preparing for his exam, and he was doing practice exams. So I said, okay, you get 2 hours for the exam. I said, were you using your phone within the 2 hours? He said, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I said, were you going to, did you go and have anything? Oh, yeah. I said, well, how can you be revising for your exam? You're using your phone, so you're communicating with your friends, and then you're often going for breaks. So if you're going to do it, you do it in a controlled environment. So there's lots of positivity that you can give to the recruiter, lots of
Mm.
positivity. But you know, I know the session is kind of short. You know, Ehab, you have my email address as well. I'm happy
Sure.
to answer all questions.
Sure. This is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to ask a couple more, and then if you're okay with it, Rishi, we'll share. I think the last slide has your email, and anyone send an email if that's okay with you, who could ask a specific question about.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. More than happy to do so.
Okay, let's just get a couple more. One, because another one related to a fresh graduate CV.
Yeah.
Should they put the education first, or should they put their experience first?
I would put your personal statement, because the personal statement, everybody you know, usually if somebody's coming from KFUPM, the recruiter will know the next student is coming from KFUPM. They're already aware of that. So it's imperative to get that personal statement correct. You're a high achiever, you're hungry, you're motivated, you love getting involved in different aspects of the business, which shows that you're a great team player as well. You know, never talk about, I did talk about the I, me, never do that. Talk about the team aspect, and saying that I'm always happy to get involved in everything that I do, especially even at university. So things that you can write for sure.
Okay, so we'll do the last question, and I think it's a combination of three of the listed questions. Is when the interview starts discussing salary,
Yes.
how much you're worth,
Yes.
how do you juggle that question, and you know, while being fair to yourself and
Yes.
the expectations from the company?
Yeah. Okay. The way I would answer this, I would actually say, okay, we've been through the questions. I've answered all your questions. You know my ability. You know why I'm sitting here today. The salary, I want to leave that to you. You know my strengths. You know what I can bring to the organization. I would like to leave that with you. You know, one of the things that we can actually do is undersell ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes the recruiter will say, you know, give me a figure. And instead, you can say in this way, look, you know my strengths. You know that I've answered all your questions. I'm happy to answer any further questions that you may have. You will give me a realistic figure based on this interview, and you're leaving it open to them. So I wouldn't actually answer that. I wouldn't give them a figure at all.
Fantastic. Good answer. If we could share the last slide, and
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, whoever has a question, you could just email it directly to Rishi. And again, thank you so much for helping out in this, and he'll get back to you with an answer.
Yeah, sure. And I just wanted to finish, and I would like to wish everybody a prosperous and happy Ramadan Kareem.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rishi. Thank you so much, Mustafa, for helping out.
Thank you, Mustafa.
Participated in this one. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
How do we stop the recordings, Mustafa?